An overseas Filipino worker, or OFW, is a Filipino living and working outside of the Philippines who are in another country for a limited or definite period. Most OFWs work as domestic helpers, construction and factory workers, seamen, nurses, and salespersons, but you also find engineers, doctors, and other highly qualified employees among them. Working overseas means economic advancement which most OFWs could hardly have achieved in the Philippines. They send back home a huge chunk of their salary to support their family and relatives. A lot of Filipino parents leave the family to work abroad to give their children a better life, as education is very important to our culture.
Ako po si Arlen Malabad at I've been an OFW for 15 years. 3 years po ako sa Taiwan and 12 years po ako sa Hong Kong. Yung 4 na bata, sobrang maliliit sila. Actually, yung youngest ko is only 11 months when I started applying. Kasi sira ng pamilya namin before. Broken family na kami. At kung hindi ako mag-step forward, still, na magtrabaho, sino ang magkikare sa kanila? Sino ang magbibigay ng pera sa kanila? It's so painful to leave your children. Pero sabi ko nga, mas painful ata na walang patutunguhan yung mga anak ko dahil hindi ko ginawa yung parte ko for them.
Kalunos-lunos ngayon ang kalagayan ng kababayan nating si Marjorie Manalang sa Jordan. Sa mga ipinadala niya sa ating larawang, makikita na lapnos ang kanyang balat at braso. Ayon sa kanya, kagagawan ito ng kanyang amo. Binubuhusan raw siya ng kumukulong tsaa, ang masaklap. Hindi siya pinaniwalaan ng kanyang agency. Pinagbantaan pa rin daw siya ng kanyang amo na ipakukulong oras na magsumbong.
Binuhusan niya ako ng magukulong tsaa. Pero ang sabi niya sa agency, aksidente daw. Sa kanya niniwala yung agency.
The Philippines wants its citizens working in Kuwait to come home following the latest death of a migrant worker in the Gulf nation. Philippine authorities said the body of a 29-year-old Filipina was recently found in the freezer of an abandoned apartment. The woman was identified as a domestic worker employed by a man wanted for cases related to falsified checks. Officials say the woman appears to have been killed by strangulation or torture, and her body may have been held in the freezer for over a year. President Rodrigo Duterte said February 9th that a ban on sending workers to Kuwait put in place last month would remain in light of the discovery. The Philippine Foreign Ministry estimates some 250,000 overseas foreign workers live in Kuwait. Reuters said the Philippines will seek help from its private airlines to evacuate OFWs who want to come home. For United News International, I'm Mila Uni.
Does the Philippines have a law that protects the rights of overseas Filipino workers? Yes, it has. This is called Republic Act 8042, or also known as the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act. This was signed by President Fidel V. Ramos into law on June 7, 1995. It seeks to institute measures for overseas employment and establish a higher degree of protection for the welfare of migrant workers, their families, and overseas Filipinos. Section 4 of Republic Act 8042 states that the state shall deploy overseas Filipino workers only in countries where the rights of Filipino migrant workers are protected. The government recognizes any of the following as guarantee on the part of the receiving country for the protection and the rights of overseas Filipino workers. 1. It has existing labor and social laws protecting the rights of migrant workers. 2. It has a signatory to multilateral conventions, declaration, or resolutions relating to the protection of migrant workers. 3. It has concluded a bilateral agreement or arrangement with the government protecting the rights of overseas Filipino workers. 4. It is taking positive, concrete measures to protect the rights of migrant workers. In short, the Act provides for selected deployment of Filipino migrant workers to labor-friendly countries where the rights of Filipino migrant workers are protected. The Department of Foreign Affairs shall take priority action or make representation with a foreign authority concerned to protect the rights of migrant workers and other overseas Filipinos. The Department of Labor and Employment shall see to it that labor and social welfare laws in the foreign countries are fairly applied to migrant workers. The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration shall provide the Filipino migrant workers and his family all the assistance they may need in the enforcement of contractual obligations by agencies or entities and/or by their principals. The Philippine Overseas Employment Administration shall regulate private sector participation in the recruitment and overseas placement of workers by setting up a licensing and registration system. Overseas Filipino workers are considered the new and modern-day heroes of the Philippines. One reason for this recognition has to do with the improvement of the nation's economy that has been attributed to OFW remittances. Every overseas Filipino worker has a different story to tell, but they all seem to have one common denominator, and that is poverty. As many Filipinos seek greener pastures and better opportunities in foreign lands, it remains an undeniable fact that many of them face challenges and hardships in exchange for better opportunities abroad. Some have been exposed to discrimination, violence, and exploitation, while others have been jailed or executed. But in spite of these struggles, the resiliency of the Filipino spirit and the virtue of self-sacrifice provide a better future for the people they love shines through. The government really has to do something in order to address these cases that involve the right of the overseas Filipino workers, especially those whose rights have been taken for granted by their employers.
I agree with the President's order, which is to ban the deployment for the OFWs bound for Kuwait. It is a brave decision and an immediate countermeasure against OFW abuses that the former presidents had not planned for them. I can say brave decision because it may risk the good relationship between our country and the Middle East countries. But despite the circumstances, the President still managed to stand his decision to help our suffering fellow Filipinos from abuses. It could be of great help for them to escape abuses, and it will also awaken the government of the Middle East from too much abusive. They might realize how important it is to have a Filipino domestic helpers in their country, and having them pulled out will mean their loss and will lead them living inconveniently.
Working in another country as an overseas Filipino worker definitely involves some risks. We've all heard of several news reports found in newspapers, televisions, and online news websites regarding cases of physical and mental abuse or even death of our OFWs. OFWs who experience abuse or any signs that may lead to it must report it to their agencies, and persons, especially fellow OFWs, must also report it to their agency in case they know of someone who is abused. The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, the Department of Foreign Affairs, and the Department of Labor and Employment must also work together for the safety of our OFWs. They must fulfill their promise that they will work closely on complaints filed by the abused OFW, whether the abused OFW is documented, meaning legally hired, or undocumented, or illegally hired.
It's a threat to Filipinos. OFW working abroad suffer from their abusive employers, but not only experience that. They don't have the right to abuse Filipino workers because of their cultures and practices in the country. According to our president, we're not sending slaves, we're sending humans. OFW are working hard and sacrificing for them to earn money for their family back in the Philippines. Filipinos should be treated right and just. The agency should also check their safety, and for our fellow Filipinos working abroad, be extra careful, be alert, be wise, and learn to defend yourself from others. Filipinos who plan to work abroad must ensure that their agencies are not doing illegal actions in order to avoid such abuses in foreign land. And whenever their employers shows violent actions, then they must report it immediately.